Ronit. So it's the day after, and by that I mean not just the day after Yom Kippur, but the day after we released the food issue of Balagan. And I found myself actually being enthusiastic about this, which is an odd feeling for me. Because we really worked so hard, I think, in putting
Yeah.
the issue out. And when it finally came out, it just was like we were, I think, in the evolution of writing on the wall, I never imagined we would do something this amazing. And what I mean by this amazing is just so beautiful. And we are publishing so many different voices. So you are the creative director. You put this thing together. Just tell me about like how did it evolve in your mind from what we started with to what we ended up dropping on Monday?
It's funny because if I had to summarize
Mm,
this whole experience, it would be that the issue of Balagan, the food theme, is a labor of love with a touch of defiance. Because to me, it was we knew we wanted to write about this theme. I mean, it's we have one coming up for language, and
mm,
we have one for longing coming up, and then motherhood. So there's a lot. And each theme for us is just a vehicle
mm,
to reflect. And food carries so much with it. And I wanted the conversation to be deep. I wanted the conversation to think, that people will think about what food means in their lives and how it reflects who they are.
mm,
And I think what we found is that it gave people a
mm.
moment to understand. It's like almost like a re-understanding of who they are. And it was so interesting because I set up, for example, to write my piece about this restaurant that I went to. And then I realized that I wrote about death. So it's
What,
that.
one second, what was on the menu?
It is, it's because you explore something that is in within your life, and then it just kind of teaches you, and it uncovers who you are at the moment.
So
And
you're
I
gonna
think,
just so tell I mean, so it's about Tel Aviv. And I think what's interesting about the piece, which to me is a kind of elegy in a way, is that you're talking about two different Tel Avivs. And what you're saying, I mean, two different parts of, I mean, it's really kind of autobiography in a way, because you're talking about the Tel Aviv of the 2000s and the Tel Aviv of now.
right, it's almost like October 7th was our
Mm,
Shiva of who we were. Like we had to just sit and understand that we need to shed who we were before and
mm,
then understand who are we now. And I think you find that in other pieces as well, where, people just realize that this emergence of it's a combination of everything really, cultural, psychological.
yeah.
It's just now we are in a different state of being. So it's interesting that you see that in every piece that we have, every poem, every photograph in this issue. And I think that's what also will lead us to the next one, where through the theme of language
Mm.
people will understand that the way we speak, the way we understand the world is different now than what used to be two years ago.
You used the word before defiance. Why defiance?
Um, well, of course, the theme itself is very controversial now, and we do realize that. Um,
You
Speaking
mean
about
because we released
food,
a food issue on Erev Yom Kippur the night before the fast?
that, and it's a very loaded term. But when we take a theme, we really explore what it means in our world right now.
Mm,
So when we did the humor issue, people asked us, humor now, really? And then we were like, yeah, yeah, humor now, really. And
mm.
then what it means, like, how do you enter this humor theme and how is it welcome in your world right now? So I
mm,
think the stuff that we have in this magazine are a very deep exploration of the theme food. It isn't recipes. It isn't this lighthearted, you know, um,
mm,
uh, outlook on life through food. There are no recipes except for one.
mm.
It's just there are no like, like beautiful
You mean the
shots of a
5,000 year old,
hamburger.
you mean the 5,000-year-old condiment recipe?
Yes, the mural.
Right.
Yeah, it's just and I think that's the exploration that we wanted. That's the exploration that we needed. And I think the reaction that we've been getting from people is that it's a thank you note.
Mm,
Thank you for showing the complexities. Thank you for showing that people in Israel, are not going through whatever they're going through with you know, this just, optimistic. I mean, we do want to be optimistic, but we are feeling the moment. And you can tell in this beautiful issue, which is full of beautiful photographs and art. And it's not just the written word, it's everything. There is, it's like we're telling a story of this land. And it's not just a beautiful story. It's also heartbreaking and it's also very,
mm.
it's sad. It's and it's defiant
How did
because
you get, how
we
did you
exist.
get, how did you get people, farmers and chefs and fermentation historians? How did you get them to write about their worlds? I mean, these are not really people, or even the chefs that we have, they're not writers. So how did you get them to write the kind of works that you're really talking about right now?
I think everyone that is very serious about their craft
Hmm.
have that in them because it means that they think deeply. So then when they get a chance to actually sit down and to reflect with words, they can do it. But
Hmm.
it is also, it's, it's, it's not just, we also have submissions, right? I mean, it's not like we just get, people that we know or people that we admire. We have pieces in the magazines us, submissions that we've gotten from the people from our community, which is just
Hmm.
great. I mean, it's exciting, you know, um, and I can't tell you how excited I am every time I read a new submission and how in awe I am of the community that wants
Hmm.
to be part of this.
So tell me
But
more, but tell me more about that, about the community that wants to be part of this. I mean, we started out really with very small communities, with workshops, and then we had writing on the wall where we were publishing other people. And just what are your thoughts now about who we are reaching or this community that you're speaking about?
I think there's a need and a curiosity about the people here, and there's it's a deep curiosity and it's I guess what we're doing is for the people who are willing to take a chance and understand what we're going
Mm,
through.
mm,
And we're not doing hasbara, we're not trying to justify anything. We're just, writing, reflecting, and speaking about who we are right now. And I think there is a growing need for that, to see the complexity of what's happening, to understand, hopefully, or at least, I don't even need understanding. I just need a curiosity
mm,
to to be, to come into this world. And that's what we're offering. We have almost 80 pages in this magazine, and we could have had more. We had to say stop, of
mm,
just a very interesting array of people wanting to contribute and taking the time to
mm.
put in words what's, who they are now for us. So that was a very humbling experience.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the way in which we're cultivating a community, maybe or maybe the better word is kind of activating a community. Because I think also, listen, just today, which is Friday, the Israeli Navy intercepted 43 ships who were coming into our territorial waters without permission. And they detained the people and put them in wherever, Greta Thunberg, etc. And this is being reported in the international media as a terrorist attack. and there are nation states now condemning us for this. So I think what you're saying is we want to reach this community because, well, maybe I'll just ask you, how does Balagan or our languages or our poetry, how do we fight or how do we make our voices heard within this melee or this tsunami of anti-Semitism?
I it's interesting because we've spoken about, who we are, and I'm secular. I'm very secular.
You mentioned that
And
actually.
yeah, no, but it's interesting how, it's how different our Yom Kippur
Right.
experience has been, and for you and for me. And, I think somebody asked me like a year and a half ago, okay, so you're Jewish, but what do you do? It's like you have a responsibility. What makes you Jewish, And I thought it was an interesting question because does that mean in his mind that I have to pray and that makes me a Jew? Do I have to just eat kosher food? Does that make me a Jew? And I think that
That's a very kind response. You didn't just say mind your own business or some version
no,
of
I did
that.
because no, because it was a genuine question and it was a question that was interesting because again, it gave me, and I think this is what we're trying to do, is is to just make people think and not just, shout and not just, to argue.
Listen,
And
one of
I
the
think
things, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying that for me is, writing and it's reflecting and doing balagan makes me, I guess it makes me a Jew. By existing, I'm a Jew because it's everything is kind of closing in on us. So just the fact that we're doing this in a way justifies, and that's what I would answer to that person, that particular
So I
person.
just want to let you know that whenever I meet people in this new community that I'm living in, and I talk about Balagan and I talk about how we work together and how different we are, and I think one of the things that we're doing is not redefining what a mitzvah is, but I say to them, Ronit is the most religious person, not only in Tel Aviv, but in Jerusalem, whatever. What I mean to say by that
In the
is
world. Okay. Yeah.
you're going to be the next chief rabbi, I think, right? Why
Cool.
not?
Cool.
No, but that if we start to define, you know, mitzvah as being an essential part of Jewish survival and the Jewish future, by any by that measure, why do you have to answer anybody? Do what you're doing. I think we're privileged because we had the opportunity and we took it to try to be part of whatever this looks like. That is the survival of the Jewish people. And like 30 years ago, I would never, the survival of the Jewish people, what are you talking about? Right? Just I'm going out to eat, I'm going out for dinner. Leave me alone. But now, and I think this is really, for 2000 years, we have been a persecuted people. For the 50 years, for the last part of the 20th century, which in America was the Jewish half century, I think, really very, very much so. I thought, what Jewish survival? Why is that even? Of course we survive. We're not only surviving, we're thriving. And now we're being thrown back into the history which we've lived for 2000 years. We just had that hiccup. Me in New York, you in Tel Aviv.
Right, but I do think that in Israel, that the sense of
Mm,
of alarm is
mm,
always, it's like it's integrated, in
mm.
us. It was never like it was dormant, but it was there. We do, the threat is this, it always exists. It does, and we don't even realize it, but it was, it was activated again.
Mm,
And now, and I think what's interesting is also with this issue that most of the people that are in this issue are, they're like liberal, they're very, they're
yeah,
and for them it was just they also realized that their voices are being silenced.
I think
It
that's
doesn't
made.
matter if you think that you're a lefty liberal or whatever, and it doesn't, it's we're being just ostracized. So it's an opportunity for them to say whatever that we don't censor. That's also the thing. It's like we don't give them guidelines. Don't talk about this, don't talk about this. No, so it's and you'll see in this
Mm.
issue that, we address a lot of things that might not be, in the consensus, keilu, you
Yeah, you
know.
use the term, and maybe, I mean, well, if just maybe last question is, you use the term conversation before. So what does that actually mean for you?
For me, it's a dialogue. It's just like that person asked me that question that I
Mm.
think that I should have been offended by.
Mm.
But then it just meant that I had to understand where he is coming from. And then I had to think about
Ah,
it. And it just made sense to me. And it
ah,
also, what it did is almost fixed everything within me to understand, the way that I look at it. So everything is a sounding board. Everything is for me to search deeper within myself. And then I think that's what we need to do. We kind of need to, and it's in this country in particular, the division can be just, horrifying. We need to just kind of listen and understand. And I think that's what the conversation is. And then allow everyone in the
mm.
conversation.
So it's really in a way you're a kind of humanist, meaning you
Yay.
no. So the humanism is that it's kind of getting in before the political screaming. And in a way, and that we don't do that. We don't do political screaming because
No.
and maybe A is all there is. It's boring. It's predictable and boring. And here it's an opportunity not only to find, I think this is what you were saying, not only the complexity of who we are here, but we want this issue, and it is a literary thing, to make people reflect. I personally, I'm amazed. So people should read Balagan.
Download, read, share, write to us, tell us
Write
what
to
you
us.
think. Yes, I mean, it's not even about submissions. Not everybody wants to write something, but, just share with us what you thought or who, also, if you know somebody that has an interesting voice, write to
Let
us
us
about
know.
that person. We're trying to expand, our outlook on everything. We welcome, everybody. So just communicate with us and just kind of join us. Be a Balaganist. I think we're a welcoming bunch.
Thank you, Ronit.
Sure. Chag Sameach.
Hug some